Welcome to Woah Drama Stories. We indulge of speaking of day-to-day troubles of human beings. Let's not wait any longer and start with the video. When the vehicle swerved, we were traveling down the highway on a frigid winter morning, moving slowly since we both knew how dangerous the ice could be. As we tumbled down a steep hill, secured only by our seatbelts, up became down, then up again. The windshield shattered at some point, and my wife, Blair, banged her skull against the dashboard. The paramedic discovered me in the snow, cut in a dozen places. A blood trail led me to the car, which had come to a halt on its side, trapped in a tight gully. I informed the police, still in disbelief, that I'd tried pulling an unconscious Blair out of the driver's seat, but couldn't move her beyond the passenger's side door. She awoke screaming for our daughter after the procedure. She could only recall fragments of the events leading up to the disaster. The physicians asked if I wanted to explain what had happened, or let them do it. I chose the former. I entered her room and took her delicate hand into mine. Who could blame her for not reacting to the news? It must have been devastating to wake up and realize your child had died in a tragic car accident, and you were the one driving. That type of guilt was something I could never bear. Back at home, Blair had faded into obscurity. Her hair was continually strewn across her brow in sweaty bunches, and her eyes were permanently red and puffy. Friends and family stopped by to restate that no one was to blame and that it could happen to anyone, but you could tell by the waver in their voices and how soon each of them left that they didn't truly believe this. Blair was rarely without a beer or a cigarette in the weeks that followed. Her face looked different today, and it wasn't just the scarring, it was the eyes. They'd misplaced something. The sparkle was gone from her eyes, as if she had become numb to the world around her. She never smiled anymore. Even her dad didn't dare ask how she was feeling anymore, because he got the same reply every time: tired. This had become her life. She couldn't imagine ever feeling happy again. Blair often thought about the day, and how it could all have been avoided if the roads were less slippery, or less dark, or the music was not that loud. Any excuse that she could find, really. If she could have changed one thing, then maybe she wouldn't have been in that situation to begin with. She felt drained of emotion, hollow. All the things that had given her joy before no longer mattered to her now. Watching TV felt like a chore rather than a source of entertainment. Cooking had become a burden rather than a pleasure. Waking up in the morning dragged her down more than it ever had before. She was so tired all the time. Nothing seemed to matter anymore. She didn't want to get out of bed most days, and she certainly didn't want to go to work. When she did drag herself out of bed in the mornings, she'd just sit on her bed and stare at the ceiling for an hour or more before dragging herself to the bathroom to wash her face and eat breakfast. She'd lost interest in anything that could distract her from her thoughts and the dark pit that she had fallen into. As I gathered empty tins and a full ashtray in the lounge one night, her fingers gripped my wrist. Then she leaned forward in her recliner and whispered, "I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to respond sincerely." She fixed her gaze on me. She was dead serious. She must have been working up to this for quite some time. "Do you think it was my fault for what happened?" For a few moments, neither of us said anything, and I believe that reluctance was sufficient. She buried her face in her hands, crying, as I shuffled away silently. The next morning, I found her surrounded by empty pill bottles, with a goodbye message by her side. It stated that she loved me, but couldn't bear the guilt any longer. My wife wanted to hear me say that I didn't blame her for our daughter's death, but I couldn't, because if I had acknowledged that I didn't hold her liable, she could have begun to wonder who was behind the wheel that morning. I couldn't let her find out the truth. Story 2. I'm currently expecting my first child. I don't live close to my mom or her family, so we have a group chat going where I keep them updated on my pregnancy, since I am not on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'd asked them not to share anything. Then my stepfather makes a post on Facebook announcing he's going to be a grandpa, that his baby girl is expecting, and shares not only the ultrasound photo, but also the name we have chosen for our baby. A friend of mine on Facebook told me about the post and shared a screenshot with me. I called him up and asked him what the hell he was thinking, and how dare he do it when we had explicitly stated not to. He told me he was sorry, and that he let excitement get to him. Then he told me I should be happy, because baby is going to be loved and has their grandparents all present and excited for them. I saw red because my dad died several years ago, so no, my baby will not have all their grandparents in their life. They are missing the one who would probably have been the best. I told him he was being insensitive and I needed to end the call before I said something I would regret. The next day he sent me a text apologizing and saying we should be closer now than ever, and that he feels that I am taking stuff out on him that is not his fault. A few hours after that, he called and told me I wouldn't have reacted as badly if Mom had shared. I told him I would still be mad, but he especially had no right to share. That he is not my father, that he did everything he could to make my dad's life hell before he died, and that I would always blame him for my dad's more sudden death. The backstory on that is that my dad started suffering from a number of health complications about 2 months after my mom remarried. My stepfather tried to get Dad to surrender custody and just visit and let him take over being the dad to me. Dad refused and continued being an active participant in my life. Stepfather continued trying to take over the role. Then he told my dad he would adopt me once he was gone, so I would always have a dad. Dad was still alive and still able to do stuff with me, and here was this guy who already tried to get him out of the picture, telling him he would take his place. Dad didn't make it too long after that. He went down rapidly. My stepfather was never shy about the stuff he was saying, so I always knew. The adoption never happened. I spoke to the judge and said I would never want my stepfather to be my father. I never called him Dad, never loved him, or said I love you to him. I've never hugged him. I have never ever celebrated or honored him for Father's Day. So when I told him that he especially had no right, and that I did blame him for how my dad died, he told me I was being unfair. He told me how cold it was, that he has been in my life for 22 years now, and I should embrace him and give my child the gift of a loving grandparent. My mom then called and told me it was mean to tell him he had no right, as though he were a stranger. Story 3. My wife, Nina, and I became pregnant with our son, Jason, when we were both 20. We will admit it was an unplanned pregnancy, but we loved our son and kept him. We did our best to raise Jason to be kind, respectful, and treat others well, and we thought we succeeded. Jason worked hard to attend an elite university. Jason and his wife Sarah had a daughter, Simone. Unfortunately, Sarah passed in a car accident before Simone's 3rd birthday. Jason raised Simone until Simone was 4. At that time, he met his second wife and moved 2 hours away. Simone lives with us. Jason visits once every 2 months at best. He and his wife would stay for the day, buy Simone a present. Then Jason would say it was time to leave. Nina and I suspect he only visits and buys Simone the present because his wife makes him. His wife, Iris, is a lovely lady. She insists that Simone should move in with them, or they should move closer to us because she wants to be Simone's stepmom and spend time with her. But Jason shoots the idea down because he says Simone moving in or they moving closer would hurt his career, and it is best Simone stay with Nina and me. Simone is 11 now, and she adores Jason. She makes drawings and cards for him, constantly bakes treats to send to him. It is devastating for her because her daddy is her hero, and he does not want to spend time with her. Her birthday was in July, and she cried when Jason did not call her to wish her a happy birthday. Iris tried lying to Simone to make her feel better that the phone lines went down and Jason did not forget, but Simone did not believe her. Simone is at summer camp all this week, and Jason invited us to a party to celebrate receiving a promotion. During the party, Jason told me about how much more money he makes with this promotion and his job title, and he asked, "You should be proud, old man. Job title and an elite university alumni." I sighed and told Jason that I honestly have not been proud of him as of late. He may have a well-paying job, but he treats his own beautiful daughter as if she doesn't matter. Simone is his little girl. She loves him so much, and he doesn't even seem to care. Nina came back with drinks, and Jason told her what I said. Nina told me that she agreed with me, and he does not treat Simone right. Most of the family says that I and Nina were in the wrong to tell Jason I was not proud of him. They said I should know how much that statement hurts at any age because I was never good enough in my own father's eyes. They said that Jason is probably focusing on stabilizing his career, and Simone can move in with them after. They also said Jason's own promotional party was not the time or place to call him out, and I could have just congratulated Jason on working hard and saved the drama for another day. I feel what I said needed to be said, but most of the family is disagreeing with Nina and me. Jason does pay for child support. He believes because he pays child support that his responsibilities have been met. Jason told us he was attending therapy in the beginning, but we learned later that he was being untruthful about it. Simone sees a child psychologist, but she seems to talk to the psychologist more about school and friends rather than Jason. Simone does not resemble much of Sarah, which could cause too many bad memories for Jason. Simone looks like a young version of Nina, with lighter skin and slightly thicker hair. The issue seems to be that Jason does not want to be a parent to Simone. Story 4. My wife has a horrible habit that I discovered 2 months ago. We were ordering lunch on the Subway app, and I told her to pick a location that has a drive-thru. That way we don't have to go inside and take the baby out of the car just to clip him back in a few minutes later. She told me it's not a big deal to leave the baby in the car to run in and pick it up fast. I had no idea she ever did this. I told her I was not comfortable with her leaving him in the car alone, even for a minute, and she told me that she's been doing it since he was born and it's always been fine. She told me she does it to pick up food, run into the post office or pharmacy, etc. I was floored. We don't live in a horrible area, but it's also not super safe either. I told her to not ever do this again. She told me that she never stopped to think about the potential danger and that she would stop doing it. Well, yesterday, as I was driving home from my brother's house, I spotted her car at the gas station near the place. It was parked up front and not at a pump, so I figured she stopped in to grab some snacks, which we like to do. I decided to stop and go in and say hi and get some food, and I pulled in and parked next to her. However, when I got there, I was furious to find our son in his car seat. The car wasn't even locked. I don't know what came over me, but at that moment, I decided to take my son and put him in my car, and he's got a car seat in there too. I then drove to the other side of the gas station parking lot and waited for my wife to come out. It took 6 minutes for her to appear. When she saw that he was gone, she looks down for a second and then started to frantically look around and cry. I didn't let it go long. After this, I saw her pull her phone out, presumably to call 911. And that's when I pulled my car around to see her. I parked, got out, walked around to my son's door, and opened it to show him to her. She looked extremely relieved, but that quickly turned to anger, with her asking you why I took him into that. I told her she needed to learn her lesson, and she promised to stop leaving him in the car, and she was extremely irresponsible. It was so easy for me to pull up and take him. No one else at the gas station even noticed. So if he really was taken there would have been no help. It would have been 100% her fault. She proceeded to call me cruel and psychotic and tried taking our son out of my car into hers. I said no and that I will be driving him home, and I left. She came home not much later, but ignored me the rest of the day. She acknowledged me today saying she wanted an apology, and I said absolutely not. And she's the one who should be saying sorry. She's been guilt-tripping me the rest of the day, saying no mother should experience the fear I put her through. Did I go too far? Am I stupid? Story 5. Am I a bad person for not accepting my sister's relationship with my ex, despite her having cancer as a teenager? My father married my stepsister's mother when I was 4 and she was 3. We've lived together most of our lives in our family. She and I were extremely close. She developed cancer when she was 14 and was sick for about 2 years. She's since made a full recovery. During that time, my parents became understandably overprotective. They also asked a lot of me. I quit my extracurriculars so I could get a job. The money went towards her medical bills, and so I could drive her to appointments. I didn't go to dances and any fun activities. I didn't need to include her. I did almost all of this willingly, the exception being having to quit my high school volleyball team. I did throw a bit of a tantrum about that, but was swiftly punished, and I think having one emotional breakdown was pretty chill given the circumstances. Anyhow, I go to college and meet my ex. We'll call him Ben, when I'm a junior. We fall in love, blah blah blah. He and I move in together when we graduate, so we've been living together for about 3 years. We were serious until July, when I walked into my bedroom and saw him sleeping with my sister. I broke it off, tears were shed, he moved out, etc. My sister apologizes at first, but then backed off. I thought she was giving me space, but last week she called and asked if we could meet up. She told me that she and Ben were in love, and was just telling me as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. Distraught, I left her in the restaurant by herself and did not pay my portion of the bill. She later Venmo'd me asking for the money. She told my parents, who then called me to their house, to tell me how disappointed in me they are for not supporting my sister's relationship with Ben. They brought up the fact that because she had cancer as a teenager, she never learned proper social etiquette and has had a hard time meeting people. I don't buy this, in part because I've seen her socialize just fine, and since we spent a good chunk of time she was sick together, that would also mean that I should have bad social skills as well, by that logic. They then told me that if I don't accept my sister and Ben's relationship, they may have to go no contact with me. I reminded them that I'm also their daughter, and they should understand my point of view, But they are adamant that this is about me being jealous of her. For the record, I'm not jealous of her. I'm not upset that Ben picked her over me. I'm sad about the end of the relationship, and do feel betrayed, but Lord knows that I don't want to be with a cheater. What I'm upset about is the fact that my sister chose Ben over me. That she slept with him knowing he and I were in a long-term committed relationship, and continues to be with him knowing how much it hurts me. Now, no one in my immediate family is talking to me, and I'm getting messages from aunts and uncles and cousins telling me that I'm a bad and selfish person. Update: turns out my sister is not only in a relationship with Ben, but 4 months pregnant, which means she and Ben were sleeping together for longer than I had even guessed. Apparently, my parents are also adamant that I forgive her because I'm already ruining their experience of their first grandchild. That's right. I'm less important than my stepmom posting ultrasounds to Facebook. This is where we're at. I got in touch with my sister and asked her to meet up again at the park, with no bill involved. I asked her if she was pregnant, and she told me the truth. She said she wanted us to still be in each other's lives, and then she wanted me to be in her baby's. A Redditor, and I forget who, I'm sorry, mentioned that she may ask me to be the godmother, and that person was correct. But as many of you pointed out, if I didn't cut her off, I would just become her bank and daycare employee. So I told her I could no longer be in her life, and I left her crying on the park bench, and felt like the worst person in the world. I emailed my parents and told them how betrayed I felt, and that I'll be cutting off contact with them. To my stepmom's credit, she apologized. She explained that she never thought my sister would have lived to have kids, and that she let her emotion over that get the better of her. Understandable. My dad said nothing, which is honestly what sucked the worst about all of this. Then tried messaging me from a burner account for the first time since the breakup, but I blocked him without reading it. I didn't go nuclear and post the story to Facebook as some suggested, but I sent an email to the extended family members whom I care about. I explained the situation and how I'd be distancing myself from my family. Some have made it into an us versus them situation. As much as I appreciate the support, feeling like I'm in some value battle just makes me more tired. So I haven't been talking much to anyone in my family. I feel lonely and crappy, but I think I made the right decision.